Welcome everybody to my talk. I am so sorry that I'm going to have to leave it up on the screen like this. I can't go full screen because I do need my speaker notes because I have a lot of information to convey to you guys and I don't want to miss any of it. So that being said, also, we might turn this into a part 1, part 2 talk because I only got through about half of my career and it's already at like 58 slides. So if we do a follow-up webinar, I'll do it with VetSec and I'll make sure Tom lets you all know. Other than that, thank you so much for coming to my session. I'm Maril Vernon, and this is Accelerating Your Career in Cyber. And I wanted to give this talk because it is so bleak out there in the job market right now. Like if you're plugged into InfoSec Social at all, you'll know that you've got like GPENs and OSCPs and master's holders out there who can't find jobs. And it feels like you're either overqualified to be low-level technicians and analysts, or you're underqualified for jobs you really want. And the inability to break into the market is the reason so many veterans are afraid to leave the comfort and stability of their military paycheck and break into private industry, even though the success there is so much slower. So I'm a big believer in that if you take the process and hack it and make it your own, you can really do it. And I'm here to give you your best shot possible by telling you exactly how I did it myself only 3 short years ago, and what parts of things I did you can replicate for yourself. So as I mentioned before, my name is Maril Vernon. I'm also known as She Who Hacks, and many of you know me for the things that I've done recently, things like being a FANG Enterprise Red Team Operator, Purple Team Program Manager, Senior Security Engineer, co-founder and co-host of the Cyber Queens podcast. But what you don't know very in depth, even across all the talks that I've done, I've had to glaze over it at a very high level, is exactly how I went from what I did previously, which I have a little tiny line on right there, which was a copy editor and social media manager, into doing a cyber job. So the plan today was for me to tell you all about my journey and pieces of it you can repeat, talk about backwards planning, a career roadmap, and some resources, but we'll see how much of that we actually get through. So part 1, the part of my journey that is the National Guard. Basically, when I decided to get into cyber, it all began with, oh, are none of my gifts gonna work? Oh no, this is not gonna be great. It all began with a dream, and I don't know where my dream GIF is. It's gonna make me sad. But anyway, I had never tried cybersecurity or anything like it, and I didn't exactly know what, I'm just gonna leave it here, what a job in cyber looked like on a day-to-day basis. I didn't have a technical background. I had, my dad was a SCADA engineer, but he didn't work in cyber. It's very, very different. He was an electrical engineering major. So I didn't really know what it entailed, but I did know that I was a single mom and I was unchallenged in my day job and I needed normal working hours and I needed a good income. So I went to the only place where they hand out mid-level management training like candy, which is the military. And I decided to enlist in the Air National Guard. And now I will say my journey gets a little unique here because I'm a naturally unorthodox and very tenacious person. And when I enlisted, the recruiter asked me what AFSC I wanted. And I told her I wanted cyber, which that was my goal. She said that wasn't available. And I said, okay, well, my backup would be Intel, you know, all these jazzy jobs. She said that also wasn't available, of course. So I looked her dead in the eye and I said, okay, it doesn't matter where you put me. In 6 months, I won't be in that AFSC. I actually did that. That was an actual conversation we had. So she put me in public affairs. Can't imagine why. And remember when I said I was tenacious? I'm also someone who knows my capabilities really, really well, and I know how to effectively market them. So I always say, when I got into cyber, I didn't know anything about cyber, but I did know everything about marketing. So I knew how to market myself and I knew how to talk to people. I also had an unfair advantage, and I always say if you have an unfair advantage, to leverage it for yourself. I had my age on my side and my experience because I had already been in Air Force ROTC and gone to and graduated OTS. And I wasn't some 18-year-old fresh out of high school who was just hanging out in student flight like everybody else. So once I got to student flight, I started networking with every NCO, unit commander, group commander I could get my grubby little mitts on. I was tracking down everybody in the hallways and talking to them about their jobs and what unit they worked for and if they would like someone who's really smart working for them. So to me, networking is very simple. I mostly told them who I was, how I think, what I do, what I stand for, and I just related to them as coworkers. The big mistake a lot of people make in marketing or in networking is they want to go right for what they want, like right for what can you do for me? And you don't talk enough about what you can do for them. You want them to think it was their brilliant idea to bring you on to make their lives easier. So I started doing that. I just treated them like people, made a genuine connection, talked about things we had in common, families, sports, experiences, bases. Eventually they would ask what unit I was in and where I'm at and where I wanted to be. And I would say, currently I'm over here in public affairs, but I really would have loved to join the cyber MSG Intel logistics unit. And I went on about my exposure and experience to what their units do from my experience before. I would ask them about their challenges, and then I would punctuate it with a skill I had to meet those challenges. So what is your problem? And then say, oh, I had someone who had that problem once. This was how I solved it for them. Because in doing that, I found that I quickly got a brand for being a very bold, but capable, confident, but could back it up with smarts person. So how you network is the first impression people are going to get of your brand. And mind you, this was all in-person networking, right? I did this during drill periods on base. This wasn't virtual, but the principle is the same. So I did that with every single unit except cyber. With cyber, I admittedly had no applicable skills. They did have a barrier to entry. You had to have certain experience or familiarity, at least with systems. And I had none of that, which I acknowledged right off the bat. But I did find a way to showcase to that unit commander what I do have. And what I did have was a passion for the subject. I really wanted to be there, and learning and proving that I could succeed. So I was like, I have a dedicated work ethic, as was proven by the fact that I'm a single mom with 2 young infants who's just enlisted in the military. I'm a smart person. I got a 98 on my ASVAB on 3 hours of sleep, I will say, by the way. So I told them, I bring nothing that you look for, but I promise if you give me this opportunity, it'll be my personal mission to impress you and make it worth it. I had also prepped for this conversation for this drill with my dad, who, even though he's in SCADA, he works for a utility. So he gets a lot of briefings regularly from the DHS on common attacks they're seeing and things to look out for and security concerns, because for utilities, it's not if we will be hacked, it's when and how many times and in what way will we be hacked. So he and I sat down and had a very high level conversation about some keywords I was able to use, like ISO and NIST and controls, but I knew how to use them properly. I didn't just drop them. I was talking about them in a practical way, and that told them that my understanding would only get deeper. So no one in this industry is going to just give you an opportunity. You have to make it happen for yourself. I literally got told by the cyber unit commander, okay, don't tell anyone we took you, but we'll take you. Oh, this is a quote I wanted to. Yeah, so no one's gonna give you an opportunity. You have to make the opportunity happen. You have to anticipate the opportunity that you want and adequately prepare for it before it shows up. Yeah, so they took me. My gifts aren't working again. Awesome. It was Napoleon Dynamite. It was like, yes. So yeah, they took me, which was fantastic. That was the first step. So some lessons learned from this area of the journey are, oh God, I love that you can see my text boxes. To know your strengths, know your shortcomings. So if you have a deficit, acknowledge the deficit, but then tell them how you have a plan to take that deficit or that thing that they want that you don't have and gain it or learn it, or it's in the roadmap. Maybe you don't have the resources right now, but with their backing, you could have it. Know your audience and their challenges. Get to know what it is they need, why it is they have a need, and what they value, and then tell them exactly how you're able to help solve the problem. Most security teams in the private industry world are just drowning. They just need someone to leap in somewhere and just start taking stuff off their plate, but they don't have the time to educate you and train you and teach you how to do it. So I just started coming in and being like, what is it you're doing today? Well, I'm writing this, I'm doing this, I'm researching this. I'm like, cool, give that to me. I'll look that up for you. You'll have a full briefing on everything I can Google in 15 minutes. Cool, you have all your findings compiled. I'll just put them into a report for you. Don't spend your time formatting. I can do that. And you just need to start alleviating. So that was something I identified in my first opportunity and how I kind of worked my way in. So first lessons learned. And as you can tell by the font, this is small because it gets very, very full. So part 2, getting into corporate. So now that I've got my super jazzy job title and nothing else, the next step was to get a better day job in corporate cyber. So I threw that up on LinkedIn. I jazzied up the rest of my profile. And I think I still have, this is a profile revamp I did for a mentee of mine. Her profile on the left is how it looked before when she was trying to get a better position in GRC. And the one on the right is literally how we optimized her headline, her descriptions, her job experience. I wrote all brand new copy for her. And I'll make this deck available after so you can actually read all of it. But how you market yourself, how you utilize the only thing you have in your control, which is your platform, is very important. So I don't have befores and afters of my own profile, but this is not unlike something that I did to my profile when I jazzied it up. So I jazzied it up and I began networking myself in cyber circles. So I joined every community and added every person I could find with the words tech, security, and cyber, which is how I found, you're not going to show VetSec, which is how I found VetSec. That makes me so sad. It's how I found VetSec. It's us high-fiving. I'm so sad. So that's how I found VetSec and discovered the wonderful world of Slack servers. And I just started getting, this is Ace Ventura typing all crazy. I just started getting involved right away. I started getting to know who the people were. I told everyone I was new and what unit I was in. But most importantly, I started asking the people already working in security the places I could go, because I'm the kind of person who needs a path and a heading. Like, I'm like, what am I doing right now? Okay, why am I doing that right now? What further goal is that serving? If it's not serving a goal, I see that as non-value added tasks that I'm doing. So I have to know that the step I'm currently executing is furthering me towards something that I want in the end. So this brings us to what we can and we can't control to a degree. At the time, we were still very much doing in-person work, especially for security folks. And I live in a smaller city of Reno with not very many qualified professionals who aren't already working at one of the big boys here in town, like IGT or Tesla or somewhere like that. So I was very fortunate already in that I wasn't competing with a big talent pool, because the things that you can't control about opportunities are when they come to you, when they show up, and who else is going to apply. Those are the factors outside of your control. But the things you can control are how you prep for that opportunity well before it shows up. You can look at the companies who typically have openings for that role and the skills and traits that they value and what their culture's like. You can start showcasing that ahead of time on your platform and participating in groups that publish work and people getting your name out there. Because when I work with someone on something and I share that work, I tag them in it. And then my audience becomes their audience. All the people I know have just been exposed to this new person. So that is helping you stand out, and that is helping you present yourself. When you're doing all of that, once that company does open up a role and they have people recruiting on it, and you've made your keywords match their keywords, when they go to the LinkedIn and search and find you people, they're going to come across you way more likely and way more likely to approach you for that opportunity. That's how I do it. So of all the things I could control, the pink is what I had done, the dark pink, and the light pink were the things that I couldn't have done yet because I was too new to the industry. I didn't have the knowledge of what skills I should prep for, what companies I wanted to work for, and how they come across people. So when a recruiter reached out to me on LinkedIn and said she had an opening with a local company for an enterprise risk analyst, she called me and she was like, "We have an opening." And I told her, I am not qualified to do that job. That's someone saying, no. I'm not qualified to do that job. And she was like, "You do cyber in the Guard." And I was like, "Yeah, technically, but that's not a full-time position. I do it one weekend a month. So even if I had been to BMT, which I hadn't, and I had gone to tech school, which I hadn't, I've only literally been doing this job, this cyber job, for 4 months, which is 8 calendar days, drill days wise, right?" And she goes, "Oh, that's okay. The person you're backfilling," because it was a backfill position, "only has a master's." And I'm like, "Oh." She only has a master's in cybersecurity. Is that all that it takes to do this risk job? Great. And she told me the security org was made up of all veterans. Literally all of us were veterans. We had 3 Army, 1 Navy, and then I was going to be the Air Force diversity hire, I guess. And they really wanted to replace this person with another vet because, you know, we have a certain sense of humor about us. We talk to each other in a certain way. We have a very get in front of me, get what you need and get out. And they really wanted to keep that working environment that they had. So I said, you know, I won't sign myself up for a job that I'm going to fail at because I'll be jobless. And she said, I really think you can do the job. That's her nodding yes at me. And I was like, okay, maybe I can do the job. So I asked her what the job actually required. This is qualifying the position, adequately qualifying the position. And I love this meme for that purpose. And I said, okay, what does this job actually entail? And she was like, you know, you're just going to be working with really big audit documents. You're going to be going through and finding the discrepancies, and you're going to be briefing the rest of the team on them and basically helping them make a decision on whether or not doing business with that vendor based on this audit is a good idea. And I was like, oh, I could totally do that. That's not that bad at all. You know, you're making me think you need a master's in cyber to do this job. And really it's like very easy to do. So even though it was like the most administrative and soft skills job you can have in cyber, I was going to play that to my advantage because at this point I only had soft skills and no hard skills. So I was like, oh, I can totally do that. And you know, here, oh, this one works. I was like, I can totally do that. And here's why. So when I went into that interview, I was prepared. I had essentially done the OSINT, right? So I went in and I knew my audience's desires. They wanted a vet, someone who could learn and adapt quickly, and someone who self-starts. In fact, my manager told me, if it's going to increase my workload to manage you, I don't want you to work on my team. I want to give you work, not talk to you for a week and know that it all got done. And I'm like, okay, I can do that. I knew what they needed, someone who could work with really, really large documents with very close attention to detail, and someone who could begin to understand the technical concepts in those documents and talk about them. Having grown up with my dad, I was already really good at taking the complex, dorky technical things he would say and making simple people like my mother be able to understand them. So I actually had a really good skill already of taking really complex technical concepts and making them digestible for non-technical audiences, which I was a part of. And then I started to hammer on what I had. What were my strengths? What do I bring to this position? How am I going to make your life easier? Because I'm already seeming like someone you have to carry, right? I seem like I don't have any skills. And I'm like, this is what I can do. I have good attention to detail. I'm a process optimizer. I'm Six Sigma trained. I have the ambition to do it. I have the ability to learn. I can articulate all these things. And I love public speaking. And most people who work in cyber don't. So, you know, I'm always a fan of being very honest about your capabilities, something a lot of people in tech don't do. And that really undercuts you, because then when you get in the job, it becomes apparent you don't have the skills to do it. And not only are they not happy with your work performance, they have to replace you, and they become inherently distrustful of security professionals because they think we're talking about doing things we can't actually do. So please don't go out there and do it. But anyway, this approach worked for me. Again, I was like, told you I'm not good for the job, but you believed me anyway. So from this part of the journey, we can take away not to be completely influenced by job descriptions. They're big and bad. And it starts off with, we just need someone to help us migrate to the cloud. You're going to be helping deploy, replace like 4,000 assets and endpoints and whatever. We're getting people into the cloud, AWS workspaces. You just need to know how to take us from here to here. And then it goes, but it would be cool if they knew Python too. And it would be cool if they knew Kubernetes in case you want to containerize an app. And it would be cool if they could do DevSecOps so that after this project, we can have them work with it. And that kind of grows. That's the mentality of these managers. It just grows. And then it becomes this big, long, complex beast that nobody is qualified for, when really they only need someone to start helping with one function. And then once you're there, they'll find something else for you to do, another project for you to help out with. So don't be completely influenced and intimidated by job descriptions. Qualify the job properly, ask the right questions, be honest about the skills you have to address the needs of that project. Recognize alternative paths into the cybersecurity org so that you can work closely with them. I always tell people, you know, pen testing is great, and, you know, being a SOC analyst is great. That might be one that's accessible, but they're not the most accessible. And I've met people who are like, I'm not going to take any jobs in cyber unless I'm pen testing. And I'm like, you have to realize my journey is unique. Pen testing is still an intermediate security function. You generally have to be working with, around, or in security in some way first. So I got in as a risk analyst. I'm a big fan of doing that. It was a great place to grow up slowly and be exposed to security concepts at a good pace. And also it got me working with the security org. So when they did open up a position, I was able to slide right into it. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Seize every learning opportunity and leverage the soft and alternative skills you do bring to the table, and intelligently target your organizations and leaders. Find the leaders you admire and follow who cultivate and develop new talent. Find the organizations who believe in giving out truly entry-level jobs, not entry-level jobs that also require CISSP. So, work backwards. Target those jobs or those orgs or someone like them that you want to work for. Look at what they look for. Look at the people they actually hired in those roles as security engineers. Find the skills they have and learn those skills, or see where you can improve upon them. Like I see most of your security engineers are networking specialists. I went and learned the cloud. So if you're going to move to the cloud, I can be your cloud architect. And you start having a niche to present about yourself. This is how this works. Okay. So those are the lessons learned for part 2, getting from the military into private and corporate. Part 3, going from risk to pen testing. This is where the magic happened. Okay, so there I was. I'm this low-level risk analyst. Like I said, this was a great place to learn not only cyber controls, because they are clearly laid out in these documents, but it was a great place to learn where they come from and why. So a control statement, you must be doing these things. How does that actually look? Offboarding employees, properly cutting off access, updating documents, things like that. And are we doing it? So I learned not only what we do to actually affect security, but why we do it. What regulatory requirement says we must do this thing? And I started learning about whole picture security, which was awesome. Additionally, I started learning how security played into the rest of the business and the organization. And I was liaising and getting FaceTime with higher level executives, the chief risk officer, the chief information officer, director of IT ops, BISOs, business information security officers. So basically little security champions in business departments who are in charge of their department's function and cyber responsibility. And I was also the meeting sacrificial lamb. So I was just getting my face out there. People started to associate me with security, which was excellent for my brand at the time. So when I didn't understand the impact of a certain control and why it wasn't being adhered to, my CISO, who greatly believed that if he developed early talent, he would never be in need of a professional when the people he has inevitably move up and on. He always wanted to have a pool of people he could pull from that he had actually trained. He would sit down and give me individualized bite-sized lessons on those exploits and attacks. So I was like, well, they're using this level of encryption. He's like, oh, do you know why that's bad? I was like, I don't know why that's bad. He's like, because you can encryption downgrade. You can negotiate encryption. You need to use this here, and you need to encrypt these things both places. And I'm like, oh, this is so exciting. Those attacks started to sound really, really jazzy. More on that later. So as I started to learn my job and I optimized it and I started, maximizing processes and automating things and leveraging OSINT and CISO to CISO conversations, I was able to take on more responsibility, because if you want the next job, you need to succeed at the job in front of you first. No one's going to give you the job that comes after if you don't prove you can have the job in front of you and do it really, really well. If you've never heard my Snacko story, ask me for it and I'll give you the Snacko story, which perfectly illustrates this. But basically, I took over small things at first. First, it was, oh, you did so good with your documentation. Can you fix the rest of the department's documentation? Sure. So I'll sit down with the architect. I'll sit down with the program manager. I'll sit down with the CISO, and I'll ask them about what they do and optimize their documentation. And in doing so, I'm learning their job better than they are because I'm documenting and teaching it to other people. And then I started, adminning some tools, taking over our vulnerability assessment and asset management platforms, the DLP tool, helping with small data leak investigations like, hey, did anyone email a social security number last week by mistake? Oh yeah, I see that over here. And fixing the fingerprinting policies to prevent that from happening. This was all in my first 3 months on the job. All of this, first 3 months on the job. So that was when I knew I could succeed here, and I decided to learn what my path would be and where else in cyber I could go. So I knew about audit. I knew about GRC. That's where I thought I would honestly end up, because it does play to my strengths inherently. I didn't really have to learn any new skills to already be good at that thing. But I wanted a challenge, right? That's why I came here. So I decided to do the market research because I'm someone who has to know what all of my options are before I make a decision. Like literally every color that it comes in, I have to know. So I started asking my boss and my guard unit, and they were like, I don't know. You could be a hacker, I guess. And I was like, ooh, what? And they were like, oh, but that takes years. It's going to take you years to do that. I got told there was a guy in my unit 8 years into his guard career who still hadn't been to whatever module CEH training was. And I'm like, oh, that's not going to work. I don't have that kind of time. Not to mention, when people say something will take years, what they mean is it took them years. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to take you years. So I said, just because it took you that long doesn't mean it's going to take me that long. Look at how far I've come already. Like, I'm very capable. So you need to have confidence in your own abilities and convey that confidence, because if you don't have confidence in yourself, nobody else will have confidence in you either. If you're the security person, there's often going to be a room full of people who look at you when stuff is getting desperate, and you need to have that air of calm and command in the room, or you're gonna be torn down immediately. So I looked into what you actually needed to get a CEH, and it looked like Sec Plus was a good place to start. And, I was given all of the usual advice, like just go watch Professor Messer and see if you can keep up and prep for your Sec Plus, which is also going to take you 2 years, by the way. And I watched about 3 minutes. No offense to him. He's so great. I recommend him to so many people. But I am a little bit more fast-paced than that. And I watched about 3 minutes of one video and I knew, ooh, this was not for me. Not for me. So it's important to know your own learning style. Like, don't just do what everyone else does. Do what works for you. So right about this time when I'm like, well, great, this sucks. And if this is the only resource you're recommending to me, I got to find something else. But right about this time, July, 4 months into my risk job, my day job opened up a full-time pen testing position. Great. The stars have aligned. The thing has happened. And they had actually written it for my contracting counterpart, the guy who was currently in the vulnerability assessor position. I was the risk analyst. He was the vulnerability analyst. And I assumed he'd naturally move into it because they wrote it for him. But whereas I picked up momentum in my role, he had started to really slack off on his. It just honestly seemed like he stopped giving a shit, like literally just stopped giving a shit. And I'm like, bro, what are you doing? They wrote that for you. And now they've opened it up to other people because you're letting it go. And I'm like, well, if it's open to everybody, I don't feel like I'm stealing. I'm going to apply too, because I'm already doing most of that. The only things I don't have are the 2 years of experience, which they wrote very accurately. I didn't have it. And the Sec Plus. So I was like, I went to my CISO. I was like, I'm already working for you. If I was your pen tester, would you forgive the experience? He was like, yes, but HR might not. You definitely have to have at least the Sec Plus. And I was like, oh, okay, the Sec Plus, back to this again. Wonderful. And that also usually takes people 2 years of working in, with, and around cyber concepts to pass. So I was like, how long do I have before this job closes? And he was like, 3 weeks. And I'm like, great. In 3 weeks, I'm going to have that. And he was like, okay, good luck to you. And I bought a book and I studied the book and I took a test and I failed. I failed the Security Plus test the first time because I read that book in a week. I went back, reread my notes, studied my gaps, did a complete brain dump after the first one. I was crying. I called my boss. I'm like, I didn't pass it. I can't make it here. Cyber was a big mistake. She was like, do a brain dump, use it as a gap analysis, study your deficits, go back and take it again. A week later, I took it again and I passed. And this is honestly where like the very first magic happened in my career. This is actually one of the shticks people really know me for, is I'm like that girl who got her Sec Plus in 2 weeks. But this was really the first time I had proved that I belonged here, that I could keep up with the highly technical subject matter, and that if they did give me something like the pen tester, I could freaking handle it, right? So I took that knowledge, and armed with that, I went into that interview. And again, I was very realistic. I was like, listen, I'm not a qualified pen tester, but that doesn't seem to be what you're looking for anyway, because no offense, neither was the guy you wrote the job for. You want someone you can teach who will keep up. I just proved I can do that. Not to mention, I already work with your security org. I understand their vision, their outlook, where they want to take the program, how they want to align it with MITRE. I understand MITRE. At that time, it was so new. People are like, what is that MITRE thing? And I'm like, you don't understand this? This is awesome. So I was the person who had like the milestones and the goals. I understood how my position and my work played into the rest of the org and how it would benefit everyone else's work and how I would drive remediation and stuff like that. Not to mention our compliance program, which is a reinforcing marker for cybersecurity insurance. When you prove due diligence because you've done the offensive testing, you're way more likely to be covered because you're not being negligent. So I understood all these things. And I was like, I'm also already comfortable with the tools that we have, and I will identify the exploit and post-exploit, fancy new words I learned how to use from my Sec Plus training, tools that add the capabilities that we need to really offensively test. So I said, I am not. I looked him dead in the face and I said, I may not be the ideal pen tester right now, but in 6 months, I will be. And I was. So more lessons learned. Again, this is going to get very filled in by the end of part 2. More lessons learned. Recognize alternative paths into security, seize every learning opportunity. You can learn how to function in security no matter what your current function for the org is. You can make the transition from customer service to security, from internal audit to security, from IT ops to security. Pretty much everybody brings a unique perspective and has something that they can teach and learn from the security org. So leverage your soft and alternative skills. Look at what the job actually needs, like whatever the position is that you're hoping to fill, look at the bare minimum required for that thing and do that strategically and intentionally. Teach yourself what you need to address their immediate concerns and learn secondary skills after to enhance your ability to add even more. Like I can already solve the problem in front of you, but then I'm going to learn this, which is my goal. And then I'm going to be able to help with all this stuff too. And your expertise breadth widens. Don't let anyone determine your rate of success. You are in charge of your path. You can do it as fast or as slow as you want. My journey isn't correct for anyone else. Someone else's journey isn't correct for me. Do it yourself in your own time at whatever pace you feel necessary. Not to mention, oh no, there's a typo. I'll fix that. Market yourself as the expert you are. Walk in knowing exactly what capabilities you have and be firm in them. If someone was like, wow, are you sure that's on port 53? I'm like, yeah, port 53, DNS, it's fine. Go away. Like, stop making me question my ability to do my job. They will. People will try and throw you. They enjoy messing with the security folks. So don't be thrown. Be assured in what you know. Use your foot in to prepare yourself further. Just because you're in one function today doesn't mean you're going to be in that function 6 months from now. You can propel and market and position yourself to be the ideal hire for any position, especially once you already work for that org. It's very, very easy. Prepare for that role ahead of time. Don't be me. Don't be trying to get your Security Plus in 2 weeks. Identify ahead of time, hey, if you were to hire a pen tester, because we don't have one, what would you look for? Oh, you look for these? Great. I'm going to prep for that now so that when you do get the budget to allocate and create that role in the future, I'm already prepared for it. I'm already ready to slide right in and then shoot your freaking shot. Do not just sit back and go, notice me, I would be good for that. You have to tell them why you're good. You have to explain it to them very adamantly, or you're not going to get these opportunities. All right, I'm running short on time, so we're going to go a little fast. But in the recording, you can slow me down. So I am going to have to turn this into a part 2 because we're only at pen testing. We haven't even gotten into purple teaming, red teaming, or program managing yet. So I owe you all a part 2. I'm very, very sorry for that. This got very, very long. I've never gone this in depth into my journey. I really wanted to give you guys all the secrets at literally every step. So I got very granular. But at a high level, how do you get into cyber? Identify unique niches that you're not going to have a lot of competition for. No one wants to be the architect. No one wants to learn to code securely. Everyone wants to go be in pen testing, and I love pen testing with my whole red heart. But it is not the end all be all in security. You can be in risk. You can be a SOC analyst. You can be in BCP. You can be in IR, you can be in GRC, you can be in audit, and any one of those can get you into a different function of security, like offensive, if that's your goal, at any point in time. Backwards plan. I've said it 3 or 4 times throughout this talk. Have a skills roadmap, backwards plan from where you want to be and where you are now, and then learn to market yourself effectively along the way. I have lots of stuff out there about personal branding, how I did this online, what I chose to highlight, how I socialized it. So there's lots of that out there for you. I leaned on what sets me apart. What sets me apart wasn't that I was like every other security professional out there. I did come from a non-technical background. I do have a female's investigative mindset. You know how they say a female who thinks she's been cheated on will do better work than the NSA. It's true. Like, I think in a very devious way. And that is something they really liked. In fact, they told me the reason I was awarded pen tester, despite my fancy speech, which I would like to attribute credit to, was because they asked me, okay, if you wanted to break into your neighbor's house because he had a safe in his basement, how would you go about breaking into your neighbor's house to get to the safe? And a lot of people just said they'd break a window or they'd test all the doors or something or whatever. And I was like, well, I have some questions first. They're like, okay, we will be your knowledge bank in this scenario. I was like, cool. How big is the house? How many doors? How many windows? How many locks? Do they have security? Which security? Is it good? Do they have children? Do they work full-time jobs? Are they in or out of the house often? What is their schedule? Do they have pets? Do they bark? Do they have close neighbors? Are the neighbors busybodies? I had all these OSINT questions and they were like, oh God, she's going to be good. So that was what actually gave them confidence. It was my mindset, not my ability to bash. I learned that after. So get in the door, no matter how you have to do it. If you have to be the woman diversity hire, if you have to be the vet diversity hire, if you have to be the soft skills hire, if you have to do some scut work for a bit, again, just take something off someone else's plate, write reports all day, do it and get in there. That is what sets vets apart. We will do whatever job is necessary, the needs of the force, right? We will do the job no one wants to do. We'll make it look good. We'll optimize it, and then we'll get the next job because that's what we do. And you get to work closely with the security org in the process. And again, naturally move into those positions. All right, how do you compete in a world where entry-level jobs are not really entry-level? I tell it to you again, identify the problem and tell them how you solve it. Identify aspects of yourself and your career that you'd like to highlight, something that gives a special capability of yours. And no matter what questions they ask, find a reason to talk about that thing. Like, oh, yes, you're asking about a time when I dealt with a really difficult decision. Yeah, I remember this one time we were faced with this really big undertaking and this really big project. And this is how I learned this and got up to speed and coordinated a bunch of people and basically solved everyone's problem and saved the day. No matter what question they ask, find a reason to talk about the thing you want to talk about. That's how you own interviews. That's a whole nother talk. I'll do another one. Thanks, that's it. I don't know if we have time for questions, but if you do, you can hit me with them. I think I'm at time. I think I only got 45 minutes. If I'm wrong, I think Tom will tell me. Oh, I was right. 5 minutes left. Anyone have a question? I know there are many. I know my GIFs didn't work. I'm so sad. I'll have a second screen next time so I can have my notes and my GIFs will work. Yeah, I'm sad. I'll make the deck available. I'll do a part 2 on the other half of my career. We're only at about 6 months into my career at this point. So we still have a lot of tenure left to go. And then I'll do interview strategies as well if you guys want. And I can do a LinkedIn profile makeover as well. I'll do whatever you guys want me to do. Did I miss any questions in the chat? Tom, anything major you guys want me to answer? You can track me down on social media if you want. So yeah, I'm sorry that the GIFs didn't work. I'm sorry I had to keep my view all wonky. I appreciate and love you all. VetSec was my start, in case you guys didn't know. Back before Heath Adams blew up, I would track him down in the server and be like, hi, I have a stupid question. My boss just told me to stand up Cobalt Strike in the cloud. What the fuck does that mean? And he would give me like 3 links, and that was it. That was all his time that I took. I would take those links, learn everything about them, spin off and tangent into rabbit holes, and then figure it out. So feel free to leverage your people, the people who are already here like that. Anyway, we've got 3 minutes. How do you think about staying with your current company versus moving to another? Are you consistently pursuing new job openings at this point in experience level? That's a great question. So I'm not necessarily a money chaser, but I will say with every new opportunity I've explored, there has been a significant increase in money, and I am a single parent. So that is high on my list, like financial security is on my list of values. But I will say I don't necessarily leave ideal positions. Like, a lot of people told me I should have stayed at Zoom longer on the red team. I should have baked a little longer, learned a few more skills and capabilities. And I was learning so much from the Beyoncés that I worked with. But when someone gave me, Acquia, a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business, by the way, love my bosses. When someone gave me the opportunity to build a dedicated purple team, which we didn't get into in my journey, but is something I've done since the beginning, like it was kind of one of those things where it's like, you have to take it. You have to take these special opportunities that don't come along often. If someone had just been like, come be a contract red teamer, come do red teaming for me at AWS, I'm like, not necessarily. I love my bosses. I love the culture. I love my teamies. I love that they let me learn and they hold my hand and bring me along and explain to me. So I really weigh all of that. I weigh benefits, educational budget, PTO unlimited, yes or no? Work-life balance, like I got to run to school in the middle of the day and pick up kids. I'm not necessarily always looking, and I really weigh all of those factors when seeking new opportunities. But I turn down like 80% more opportunities than I accept. I think John Strand is still mad at me. Sorry, I love you too. If I mainly did manager positions and limited information technology in the military, what is your recommendation to transitioning to entry-level manager? You might not be able to be an entry-level manager in IT civilian security if you've never done information security management. But if you do have management, you can lean on that and say, listen, I'm good at tracking multiple timelines, multiple projects, multiple budgets. I'm good at managing my resources, upskilling my people. So I might not know the tech side, but I am good at the people side. And at the end of the day, management is still people management. So, once you let me get in there, I will help bring my team along. I will develop my people into better cyber professionals, and I will be a better cyber professional. If they want to learn Pen Test Plus, I'll learn it right alongside them, and we'll all be better off doing it. You can move into ISO, which is, again, kind of like a riff on GRC administrative, but with some technical. Pick something to learn, cloud, Kubernetes, a tech stack of some kind, Elk Stack, and you can be an ISO for that. So you've got a lot of avenues there, David. If you want to hit me up on LinkedIn, please do that. And I think we're at time. Sorry. Thanks for coming to my hot mess of a talk. I appreciate you all.